Welcome back to the next chapter of the Bodsy Brake Bible. Last time we went through the jacking of the car safely. Click back through my previous jacking and axle stands video if you missed it. Now we're moving on to the front brake pads. So now we're just checking to make sure that the brake fluid isn't over full. So we've taken the cover off the top. In this case we've got an auxiliary battery.
So it's about ½ an inch off the full mark, so we're not going to overflow anything as we push the pistons back. It's nice that under the engine is under the bonnet is nice and clean.
So the first stage of the brakes we're going to do today is the brake pads. Now we will be changing obviously all the discs and everything else, but in this specific part we're just going to be changing the pads and show you how to change the pads. We've already taken the wheel off, we've got the various breaker bar and sockets to take the wheels off. Just make sure that we've got all of the parts that we need. In this case we're just changing the brake pads. So we've got the brake pads themselves, in this case they're Febby-Bilston brake pads. They come with fresh bolts, red rubber grease if we need to put anything onto the slider pins to make sure that they're all greased up, ceramic grease for putting on the ends of the brake pads to make sure they slide in and out, thread lock. In this case we don't need thread lock because they're already on the bolts for the brake pads, but we've got some additional thread lock, and in this case we've also got fresh spring clips. In some cases you can reuse the spring clips, but we're going to put new ones on for this particular one. So for the ABS sensor and the brake pipe, it's held in by a 10mm bolt. It's usually very, very tight and can quite often break. Sometimes you'll need to drill them out. And that's just to make sure that the holder comes away from the side.
That's properly codged into that socket, that is. Need a parts tray.
Yes.
Right.
I think the GoPro's going to get a fair amount of shots from that.
So you can just start to get the pistons to retract by just pulling on the caliper at an angle once you've got those bolts out, which just frees it up enough to move it up on the top. Just make sure you unclip that ABS cable from the flexi brake pipe and pop it up there, and I always like to put a cable tie through the caliper and just pop it up round the wishbone, just so that it doesn't fall and end up hanging from the flexi brake pipe. There we go, that's nice and secure for the time being. So we can now pop these brake pads out, which, as you can see, just about reached the end of their useful life. Sometimes you might need to leave them out with a screwdriver, and the spring clips are looking like they've also seen better days. They just pop out. You might want to take note of which way they come out, because when you come to put them back in, if you've not done it before, they can be a little bit confusing. But the small slot goes onto the caliper carrier, and the big slot is for the pad to sit in.
So we can see that the brake pads that we've taken off, overall thickness of 11.4mm, but the actual pad thickness, depth of the pad.
So that's 5.3mm for the pad.
And the minimum thickness of pads on Discovery 3 is 3mm. So technically, yes, you could still use them, but we wouldn't use them before going on an expedition.
Well, we could remove the wildlife from Wales. Just take that out of the shot. There we go. So the slider pins should move freely, and they should pop in and out without any problems. These are feeling a tiny bit stiff. And in actual fact, we will be renewing the whole caliper carrier on another video, but for the purposes of this video, we'll just put a little bit of red rubber grease in there and see what they're looking like. So they just pop out. You can just pull on the rubber gaiter and out it comes. Just give them a wipe over and put some fresh grease on. Just think, by the time we have our dinner this evening, we might have some new brake pads. So you can take the boot off altogether. You see that they're starting to corrode at the top. The actual part where they're sliding, there is a little bit of scoring. It's not too bad, but we will be replacing them on another video. This one is just a repeat. Again, we'll just take that boot off there. That one's looking even crustier. You can get these carrier pins and the boots as a separate part, so if they are starting to deteriorate like these are, you might want to consider replacing them as a separate item. Underneath that tripod there's a rubbish bag. I kind of feel a bit of a cheapskate even putting these back on just for the purposes of the video. So you don't need a great deal, just a little smear on each one. And then just pop that back in. You just squeeze it, usually the rubber boot just jumps straight back on. Just give it a little twist to make sure it's on all the way around and it's not gone on at an angle. So it is quite important to use the red rubber grease, because by the nature of the name, it is rubber friendly, so it doesn't degrade the rubber in the boots. There we go. So you get your G-clamp with an old pad, put it up against both pistons. You should just be able to wind that clamp back. There's no winding mechanism in the pistons themselves on the Discovery 3 and 4 or the Range Rover Sport, so you can literally just push the pistons back. You do need to do them both at the same time, otherwise as you push one back it will push the other one out. So they've gone back quite nicely. You can see that rubber boot is as compressed as it should be down here, so there's no need to go any further. We're all good. At this point you might want to get rid of these little bits in here just to prevent them from catching again. So we'll just spray a bit of brake cleaner in there just to get rid of any muck that's in there. You shouldn't really use an airline to clean your brakes because the brake dust is carcinogenic. So we won't be doing that today. I'll just get a little brush and just clean that out. Here we go, little brush. This is just a nylon brush, so it's not going to damage those rubber boots. And it will just get that rubbish out from in there. There we go.
And there we've got the old brake pad, which is getting past its best, and the new brake pad. So on the new brake pad you'll see, if you just turn the angle a little bit,
There we go.
you'll see that there's a leading edge here and here. Some of them may only have a leading edge on one side, and you want the leading edge to be on the side that the disc is going to be rotating. So in this case we want it there. The disc will rotate in a clockwise direction and wear on that leading edge, and it helps to bed the brake in. Now some brake pads may have a coating on top of them to help them bed in. Of course once you've changed the brake pads you do need to just take it easy to allow them to bed in to your brake discs. Now in this case the brake discs, there is a bit of a lip there. It's probably the last set of pads that this set of discs would have. There we can say the depth of it. The width of the brake disc should be 30mm as standard from new, and the minimum thickness is 27mm on the front disc. It's usually quite obvious as to whether your brake disc is worn down or not. We're just going to check this with a standard gauge, using a couple of washers to counteract any lip that it may have. So this is where Clive needs 3 hands to be able to do this.
So that's
reading 34.8, and there was 6mm of washers, so we're down to 28.8mm of disc thickness. So in reality, for an expedition trip we would change these discs.
absolutely. But for the purposes of this video, we're just doing brake pads. We'll do the discs on the next video.
I hope this is the right pack.
So those clips just pop in. Make sure you get these little locating parts in the right place so it just snaps in. And of course the other one goes in the other way up. If you don't get them pushed all the way home, you won't be able to get your pads in. They're all good. A little bit of ceramic grease and it will just help the pads to slide. Take care not to get it on the braking surface of the pads. If you do, give them a spray with some brake cleaner and wipe it all off. Doesn't need to be very much. Spread that around. There we go. Happy with that? Ah, this will be the man from Advanced Factors with some parts for a customer. So we can put the caliper on with relative ease because we've got no pipework connected yet. Let's do the top bolt first, just because that makes it easier. So just finger tight to start that.
Just show a close-up of that bolt, the one you got in your hand. So this is the bolt that came with the brake pads. You can see it's already got thread lock on there. It's a dry thread lock. Works exactly the same as the wet thread lock does. It dries up and stops the bolt from coming out.
With a 13mm socket and a 17mm spanner to hold the slider pin still. He talks up to 35.
Yep.
So 35 Newton meters. So again, we're back to the small torque wrench for that. Let's lock that slider pin and there we go, nice and smooth to do it with torque wrench. So that is the caliper physically installed but not plumbed in.
Of course, you've got to have the obligatory swear jar because it wouldn't be the same if you did a job without swearing. But just straightening the wheels back up afterwards just makes it a little bit easier for putting the tyre back on. Now in this case we're changing wheels actually, and we're putting 18-inch Compomotive wheels on with BFG KO2 tyres. The reason why we're just changing to the 18s is, as we mentioned earlier, we're off to Morocco in a few weeks' time, and the 18s will just cope with the terrain a little bit better, and they're more widely available 18-inch tyres out there if we do need to get any additional ones. We have got 6 that we're going to take with us anyway. These Compomotive PD 1881 wheels are great because they'll cope with the V8 brakes on the D3, but they'll also fit the Discovery 4 as well. So these are the smallest wheels that you can fit onto a Discovery 4 with standard Discovery 4 brakes. Otherwise you're onto 19-inch wheels. So we've set this to 140 Newton meters at the bottom there. And you also note that we've put no copper slip on the threads. You don't need copper slip on the threads of these, and if you do put copper slip on, then you can easily over tighten. So you can drop this to the ground to do the final full tightening.
There we go. 1 down, 3 to go.
These are the Compomotive bad boys going on, all ready to rock and roll. So because we've already got the jack still stayed under there from when we first set it up, we'll now just jack the wheel off of the axle stand. Remember, we've still got the rear wheel chopped up, so the car shouldn't go anywhere. We have got the parking brake on as well, but if you didn't have the park brake on, then as long as it's well chopped, then it shouldn't have an issue at all. I was just checking to make sure there's nothing else under the car. No tools stuck under. Make sure we're clear of the rubber mat. And gently twist. You see the whole thing coming down now. Simple as that. We're going to crack on and do the other side. Obviously it's taken us a while to do this side because we're filming it for your good selves. The other side has the brake wear sensor on, so we'll make sure that we cover that, and maybe we'll do a time lapse of the other side so you see that we're not cheating.
Okay,
So tools.
So we have got a G-clamp. We've been using some calipers to do some measuring. Some small pieces of metal to overcome the lip on the disc when measuring them. We've had some ceramic grease. We've had a 17mm spanner, a 10mm socket, a 13mm socket and a ratchet. A little brush to do some cleaning, a screwdriver, torque wrench, and we've also had a breaker bar, a 23mm socket, a 24mm socket and a 22mm socket, and some plastic blowing around.
We changed these discs 2 weeks ago, and since then the car's hardly moved. So the rust that you're seeing on here is just absolutely normal. Every manufacturer would have the same result. This is just a reaction of water on ferrous material and is not a fault